There's an elevator shaft in the middle of the field. It only goes down. You can see it from the highway if you're paying attention. A strange square of concrete, rising like a scar among the waving golden grass. No building, no cables. Just an open mouth of metal and shadow, breathing quietly beneath the wind. Most people drive past without looking. But some, the restless ones, the grieving ones, the ones who've lost something they can't name, they stop. And that's how the story begins. It was summer, late July, the kind of evening where the air feels thick with memory. The sky was still glowing orange, and a storm was building somewhere behind the hills. When the lightning flashed, it lit the horizon like a heartbeat. That's when he saw it. Elias Turner, 32. The kind of man who'd forgotten how to live long before anyone noticed. His wife, Nora, had been gone 6 months. Car accident on Route 9. The kind of tragedy that rearranges the world quietly, leaving the body standing while the soul wanders lost. He'd been driving without purpose, chasing nowhere in particular, when the field appeared. Vast, silent, endless. Something about it pulled him off the road. Maybe it was the grass bent unnaturally toward the center. Or maybe it was the hum he thought he heard, just beneath the wind. And then he saw it. The elevator shaft. A perfect square of iron and concrete, half buried in the earth. There was a single button on a rusted panel beside it. It said only one word, DWN. He should have turned back. Every part of him knew that. But grief has a way of quieting reason, of making the impossible feel like a doorway instead of a warning. He pressed the button. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a sound, deep, mechanical, ancient, echoed from below. The air shifted, and a soft light glowed from the depths. The doors opened. Inside, there was no floor, no ceiling, no walls. Only darkness that seemed to breathe. And yet, there was a sense of invitation, like something was waiting for him. Elias hesitated. Then he whispered, "Nora." The darkness answered with silence. And still, he stepped inside. The doors closed. The elevator began to descend. At first, it felt like falling through a dream. There was no sound but his own heartbeat. No feeling but the slow, steady pull of gravity. He couldn't tell if he was moving or if the world was. The numbers on the display above the door began to count down. But they weren't floors, they were years, 2025, 2024, 2023. The elevator wasn't taking him down. It was taking him back. The hum grew louder. The air thickened with the scent of rain and earth. And then, suddenly, the doors opened. He stepped out into the sunlight. A meadow, green and alive. The same field, but different. Younger, freer. The sky looked clearer, the air warmer. He knew this place. It was the summer he'd met Nora. She was there, standing by the old oak tree, sketching the horizon in her notebook. Her hair was catching the light, her laugh carried by the wind. And just like that, time folded into itself. He wanted to run to her, to tell her everything. But something stopped him. She couldn't see him. He was only an echo, watching a memory replay itself, too fragile to touch. Elias sank to his knees. Every cell in his body screamed to reach out, to change something, to undo the pain that was waiting ahead. But the elevator behind him hummed softly, as if reminding him, "This is not your world anymore." He stayed until the sun dipped below the horizon. And when the last light faded, he whispered her name again. That's when he heard it. Her voice, faint but clear, coming from the dark. "Keep going, Eli." He turned. The elevator doors were open again, glowing softly in the twilight. He didn't think. He stepped in. The doors closed. And down he went. This time, the descent felt slower. The hum of the elevator pulsed with rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The numbers began to fall again. But these weren't years. They were moments. Each one flickered before him like a projection. Laughter over coffee, a midnight drive, an argument that turned into silence. The elevator wasn't a machine, it was a vessel of memory, peeling away the layers of time he'd buried under grief. He saw himself at her funeral, frozen beside the casket, unable to cry. He saw the nights after, when he'd sat in their kitchen, staring at the empty chair. He saw the day he stopped answering calls, stopped eating, stopped living, and beneath it all, one truth whispered softly. He had been descending long before he found the elevator. When the doors opened again, the light was dim and golden. He was standing in a house, their house. The walls were lined with pictures. The smell of cinnamon in the air. Nora was there again, this time sitting at the table, humming quietly as she painted. He wanted to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. Without looking up, she said, "You shouldn't be here yet." He froze. "You're dreaming, Eli," she said softly. "But that's all right. Sometimes we need to go down before we can go home." He walked closer. "I miss you. I know. Are you really here?" She smiled. That same half smile that always made him feel seen. "I'm here as long as you remember me. But you can't stay. There's still light waiting for you up there." "I don't want to go back," he said. "There's nothing left." Nora stood, crossed the room, and reached out, her fingers stopping just before his face. "There's always something left. You just stopped looking." And then, for the first time, he felt her touch, not on his skin, but in his chest, where grief had made a home. It felt like warmth, like forgiveness. The elevator chimed softly behind him. "Go," she whispered. When he turned back, she was gone. The house was empty again. He stepped inside the elevator once more. It only went down. The descent this time was faster, deeper. The numbers blurred into light. The hum became a low, steady chant, echoing through his bones. He closed his eyes. And when the doors opened, the world had changed. He was standing in the same field, but it was winter now. The grass was gone, the earth pale and bare. The wind moved like a whisper through the emptiness. And in the center stood a second elevator. Identical, silent, waiting. On the panel beside the door, instead of "DWN," there was only one word, "RAMMR." He pressed it. The ground trembled, the sky darkened, and the air filled with the sound of countless voices, laughter, tears, songs, stories, all the fragments of a life lived and forgotten. Elias sank to his knees. Every memory he'd buried came rushing back. The father who taught him how to build a kite, the friend he lost in college, the moments of kindness he'd ignored, the times he'd chosen silence when love begged to be spoken. The elevator wasn't about death. It was about descent into truth. All this time, he'd been trying to escape grief, when what he needed was to face it. The light from the shaft grew brighter, warmer, until it didn't feel like light anymore. It felt like home. And in that moment, he understood. The field wasn't a place in the world. It was a place between worlds, where memory and soul met, where the living came to lay down their ghosts. The elevator wasn't a trap or a curse. It was mercy, a passage through pain. He stood, the wind wrapping around him like a promise. The light pulsed once more, then rose, upward, not downward. For the first time, the elevator ascended. When the doors opened again, he was back in the field. The sun was rising, soft gold spilling across the grass. The elevator was gone. He breathed. Really breathed. For the first time in months. In the distance, he saw a figure walking along the horizon, hair glinting in the morning light. For a heartbeat, he thought it was Nora. But when he blinked, she was gone, replaced by the shimmer of the sun. He smiled. Sometimes the people we lose never leave us. They just move into the spaces between our breaths, into the quiet corners of memory where love keeps them alive. Elias turned toward the road. The world looked the same, but he wasn't. He no longer carried the weight of going down. He carried the knowing that every descent, no matter how dark, hides a doorway to light. And if you ever find yourself driving down Route 9, and you pass a field that hums beneath the wind, don't be afraid to stop. Stand there. Listen. Maybe you'll hear the faint sound of an elevator rising. And maybe that's someone finding their way home. T-G-E-N-D.